All right, Steve. We talked in the last part about your early days. You ended up at race form, and you learnt from a few knowledgeable people. All of a sudden, you've ended up at the racing desk at the Sun. Now,
Yeah.
people go to university and do journalism and stuff, and they don't get a job on the Sun. So, were you a good cricketer?
Yeah, well, I always try and rib Claude because obviously he was a massive cricket fan and still is, and listening to some of his stories were quite funny. I think it helped the relationship with Claude that he knew that I liked cricket and played cricket, and some great stories that he tells mostly about cricket. And he used to do the after dinners circuit down where he's from in Kent and Sussex and round there. And I can't remember who it was, one of the famous spin bowlers always used to do a double act with Claude. And Claude used to play for Three Bridges Cricket Club, and whoever he was doing the double act with, it might have been Jim Laker or one of the spinner, or maybe Fred Titmus, who was a good friend of his, always used to say, "Oh, I loved seeing Claude and hearing all his stories about how he took 3 wickets for 1,000 bridges." So he's quite a funny guy when you get on with Claude. And if you can play cricket, then you're halfway there.
For anyone that didn't see the interview with Claude, he basically said that he got the job at the Sun because he was a good off spinner. Now, so how did you get your break there?
Well, I work with a guy who is still working there now at race form, and he asked if I wanted to go up and joined there. I 15 years ago joined as a sub-editor, and it was in the days when they were at Wapping, and it was a big open floor office. And I remember the first week I was there. Anyone who knows the Sun see that in Dear Deirdre's place there's always like a scenario with the scantily clad girl bent over the photocopier, and this was being shot while I was there, and I thought, good grief, this is going to be a fantastic place to work. And I never ever saw anything remotely like that ever again.
Now, you said that the Sun had moved to Wapping at that point. Were the pubs near it? Was it still a pub culture, the journalism in those days? Yeah,
well, the first few shifts I did there, there was the sports subs always used to have a break. They always used to say, it's break. They always go down the pub, and I thought, God, this is incredible. And I can only imagine what it was like in the Fleet Street days when Claude was knocking around Fleet Street and people like that. And I know a lot of the guys who worked at the Mirror, who I go on cricket tour with at the Badgers, and some of the stories there, subbing from the pub was quite apt, I think.
Now, you obviously did very well at the Sun, and 5 years later you became Templegate.
Yeah, when Phil Logan left, I got asked to do Templegate, so it was a good thing, because I was always someone who was a punter and liked to think there was a form expert. So yeah, it was great. And in the early days, I remember tearing my hair out when something got done on the line, and you soon realise that if you don't chill out a bit, your blood pressure's going to come through the roof, kind of thing. So, but it was great, really good job to have.
So what would Templegate entail for a working day?
Well, everyone's got their own way of studying form, haven't they? I'm not someone who puts a great deal of weight into times of races, because obviously I was doing jumping and flat every race every day. You had to come up with a tip and in your top 3 bets. So I don't think I can see why people use the times on the flat, and especially the all-weather, but in jumping, when you don't know the exact yardage of the races a lot of the time, and certainly not the GPS, I don't think that's great. I used to do my own ratings, which I rated the race, the strength I thought the race was in the grade, rather than the horses, which might be a bit different to it, but it was quite time consuming. And I got into quite a good vibe with that, and I thought I had quite a lot of success with it. But in the end, it just, with so much racing, it proved pretty hard to continue, especially when I was doing more writing as well.
Well, surely tipping in every race everybody knows that's an impossible task to show a profit on. I mean, was it a bit soul destroying at times to have to go through all the all-weather cards? And
you didn't have enough time, that's for sure. And then when Claude retired and I was doing the writing as well, you just had no time to do that properly either. So it was sometimes a bit frustrating, but at the end of the day, you were still doing a job you loved, and you still had people would have given their right arm to have a job where you looked at form all day and tried to beat the bookies. So it wasn't all bad.
Now we know that journalists are all honest. So was it tempting sometimes to have a guess up?
Well, I wouldn't say a guess, but it's on a Friday for Saturday when you were doing Sunday's races as well, and you was sometimes looking at, I don't know, 80 races. You couldn't spend all your time looking at Wolverhampton in the evening or something like that, and you had to just take a bit of I suppose it was a little bit of a guess, but informed guesswork at times, and quite often when you don't have to all that much time to spend on it, and you're just doing, you do come up with some good days. I've been through the card I think 6 times. Once was Royal Ascot week at Ripon, where I wouldn't have taken much, and another time was on Derby Day at Hexham, where it wouldn't have been the most important meeting by a long stroke. So it is interesting when you do come up with a good run when you haven't had time to look at it every angle, certainly.
And did you just get fan mail and hate mail from punters?
Oh yeah, a lot of the hate mail. Yeah, it's saying how useless you were and all that, and especially with the advent of the internet, when it became a lot easier. I mean, newspapers do attract people who like to write letters in, and they're usually not all that complimentary.
So what would have been, have you got any stories that you sort of can relate to us as Templegate?
You do come across some funny situations when you're Templegate, and they're all appearing in your own mind, how well and badly you're doing. It always amazed me when you were on a bad run and you come up with a winner, and there was always someone who would say, "Oh, fantastic tip," and I think, God, you haven't seen the last fortnight, have you? And that always surprised me. But it was always, I suppose, the greatest day was when Neptune Coulanges won the Grand National, and I tipped it up at 40s. I think it was in the morning, and 33s on the day. And I'd been talking to a lad I worked at Raceform with, Stefan Edwards, earlier in the week, and I sent him a text, funny enough, and I said, tell me a reason why Neptune Coulanges can't win the Grand National. And he texted back and said, there isn't one. And on a Friday night, he texted me again saying, what on earth are you doing? And I said, what are you on about? And he just put Neptune. And I rang him up and I said, I thought we agreed that Neptune Coulanges had a great chance. And he said, yeah, but I've just looked in the selections box and you've gone for Neptune Equesta. So I had to ring up the Racing Post and say, no, you not Neptune Equesta, Neptune Coulanges, because it was all over the front of the Sun anyway, so it wasn't like chancing it. And that turned out to be pretty much that 2 inches of Neptune Coulanges' nose ended up winning me the Naps table. So if it had gone in Neptune Equesta, I think I'd have been a bit upset on that Stewart Inquiry, certainly. So
was things like the Naps table quite important to you?
Oh, massively, yeah. I mean, if you go into the office and that you say, oh, well, he's a good sub, or he's a good writer, or they do that well, or they design pages well, but it's only opinion. It's there in black and white how well you're doing in the tips, that's for sure. And it doesn't say, oh, bracket, got beat a short head in the Lincoln or something at 50s. It's just there in black and white how well and badly you're doing, and you can obsess about it. So I never used to take much notice of. Certainly wouldn't look at it every day and wonder if I was going to go up or down. That's for sure, because it would just fry your brain.
So there was a lot of personal pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it's personal pride, obviously. If you're going to do a job like that thousands of people would love to do, you've got to do it properly, and you've got to do it to the best of your ability. And you've got to put the hours in, and it was a lot of hours looking at races and studying. I must say, when I first started doing it, if I couldn't remember a race, if I was looking at the form and couldn't remember a race, it used to annoy me. And these days, if I look at a race and I can remember it, I think, oh God, that's quite good, isn't it?
So were you taking your personal punting very seriously as you were working with the Sun?
Yeah, certainly at the start I found that I was betting less often but betting more because I thought I had a stronger, more informed opinion. I was watching your interview with Chris Dixon, and on the back of that, people seemingly getting a bit hot on the collar, saying he wasn't a professional punter. That I never heard them say he was, but he's a sharp lad, and I'm certainly with him. I would never want to try and punt for a living. I think it's the hardest thing you can do, and I take my hat off to people that do it.